Tianxin, you have questions for us.
Yes, Master. My first question I would like to ask you is, what exactly do you need to cover all cornerstones to have an efficient, basic altar?
In Buddhism, you may have noticed that we have beautiful altars. Some temples, Fu Guangshan or Xilai Temple in California is a beautiful example. Guangming in Orlando is another one. Various beautiful Buddhist temples in Japan and in Vietnam. And the adornments are pleasing to the eye, and they lead one to feel that they are out of this mundane world. And the shrines themselves, very different but basic similar concepts. So your question is, what are the basic cornerstones, or what do you need to have a basic shrine for practice? Before answering, well, as part of the first part of the answer is that nothing. You need absolutely nothing except the Nianfo. If you are a person of meager means, and by that I mean not much money, it is simply enough to have the Nianfo Amitofo here. This is the most beautiful altar and the most beautiful shrine that you will ever own. And this is the shrine that no matter how much burning or physical destruction may happen, the most beautiful shrine in the world is here. If Amitofo, Nam Amitofo, is the first thing when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you think when you eat your breakfast, the last thing you think when you kiss your wife or your children to bed, and yourself, when you settle in to bed and you say Amitofo, that is the most beautiful shrine. And that is the only shrine that is absolutely necessary. But I know your question was about aesthetics and in this world. But I had to preface that first because the most beautiful shrine is here. Don't feel that you need to purchase the most beautiful shrine of Amitabha or the Bodhisattvas or spend money on flowers and fruits and food and all of the incense and all of these beautiful things that we offer the Buddha. The best offering of the Buddha is the recitation of the Nianfo, of Amitofo, or Namo Amitofo, through your life, in your mind, and in your heart, and on your lips. But essentially, for Pure Land practice, if one were to create a simple shrine in the home, I would say that at the very minimum, you would need a portrait or a statue of Amitabha Buddha, his companions Guanyin Pusa, Dashizhi Pusa, or Amitofo, Guanyin, Milofo, Dizhangwang Pusa, Dashizhi Pusa, any other bodhisattvas, but Amitofo at the very heart of the altar. A bowl or a burner for incense, some form of light, a candle, even if it's a little tea light, and an offering of, at the minimum, 3 cups of water. That's it. You can always add, as your financial situation advances, or you can always add when you feel the time is right. But for us to focus so much on, I have to have an altar because that's the place where I make my prostrations before the Buddha, it is a lofty goal, and it is a lofty ideal. However, it is not necessary. If you were going to create a basic Buddhist shrine, those are the only elements that you would really need. As you go on, you can create altar cloths, additional statues, different incenses, your sutra books if you choose to recite the sutras and things like that. The Dharma fish, it makes the sound to regulate the chanting. A bowl bell, a hand bell, all of these things are supplementary items, just as is the recitation of the sutras, even the Amitabha Sutra. Those are auxiliary practices. Chanting of the Heart Sutra, even seated Chan style meditation where we focus on the name Amitabha, 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 Amitabha quietly as we sit in Chan. But all of those are supplementary and secondary practices. The most important thing, as I said in the very beginning of your question, is this. This is the best shrine that you will ever have for the Buddha. Because you may spend thousands and thousands, and I've seen beautiful home altars that are covered in dust. And they have visitors. Look at my beautiful shrine. Look how much money I spent. See, I'm a good Buddhist. Look at how wonderful this is. And yes, they may have offered fresh fruits that day because you were coming over. The house may smell of fragrant incense because they just offered it for the first time in 6 months. But yet the shrine is covered in 3 inches of dust. And that dust is simply bad karma. And it's all for show. And it's all for beings, ordinary people in this world. Look at what I have done for the Buddha. Look at what I have made. I spent so much money. I burned this incense. Look at what I offered today. I, me, me, me. So you may have $25,000 spent into a home altar. But does it get used? Is Amitabha forgotten in the morning and in the evening, at least at the bare minimum? So many people, let me get dressed and I have to put my tie in my breakfast and get my children to school and have my wife make sure she's taking care of the household duties before I leave, as a wife should, and then I go off to work. And then I'm at work and I yell at my coworkers and I'm angry, and I come home and my wife hasn't cleaned the house and my children are being disruly and we can't sit together at a family meal, and then I go to bed with anger. Where is Amitabha Buddha? Where? You have a $25,000 shrine. You have a shrine that costs more than most automobiles in the West. And yet, we have not said Amitabha once in that day. Shame on you. All of the money that you have spent can be burned and become nothing in 5 minutes. What remains is the Nyempho. As a wife, if you stay at home with your children, when did you gather your children together to greet Amitabha in the morning? Offer him fruits or breakfast foods to be given to your children so that they can learn. They can obey you as the parent. But more so than obey you as their parent, you should teach them the importance of the recitation of the Nyempho. Amitabha, Amitabha, Amitabha. Good morning, Buddha. Namo Amitabha. Offer him breakfast food so that then they can consume, being blessed by the Buddha. When you as the husband come home and you've had a horrible day at work, before kissing your wife and children, remove your shoes and get on your face bow before the Buddha. Perform repentance for any negative things that you've done today, and recite the Nyempho for even 10 recitations. What does the sutra say? Those beings that recite my name perhaps to 10 times, if they are not reborn in my Pure Land, may I never become the Buddha. Nyempho, 10 times. 10 times in the morning, 10 times at night. It is not difficult. And in that way, even the poorest, homeless person who is suffering their karma in this life, moving from this place to that, this place to that, they still have the Buddha in their hearts. And what you should do is silence your cell phone when you get home. Do not let the distractions of your cell phone be the first thing on your mind. Silence it. Put it on silent. Mute your cell phone. And bow before the Buddha, offering incense and prayers and vows to be reborn into the Pure Land. And not just for yourself, for your wife, your children, your non-Buddhist friends. Make vows and dedicate merits that they can be reborn into the Pure Land, even if they've only heard the Nyempho one time. So the essentials for a Buddhist shrine: your heart. First and foremost, your heart. Secondly, a portrait of Amitabha Buddha, a statue, a bowl to offer incense, and 3 water cups and possibly a candle in the day-to-day world. You can always build later. Next question.
Next question, Master, is I understand that recently you have received something called the Pure Land Passport. I was curious to know more about it.
Pure Land Passport, if you go on to the website purelanders.org, there is a beautiful book that has been produced by our Singaporean Pure Land brethren. And it's the size of a passport book. It's very small, but it is very, very important. And I think that Pure Land Buddhists all should receive copies of this. In American dollars, it comes out to maybe $11 and some change. But this book is a how-to guide for death. And not just a how-to guide for death for you. You're dying. You really don't need a how-to. You've already learned. Just focus on the Nyempho and wait for that glorious moment that Amitabha Buddha and the whole host of the Pure Land appear before you to welcome you into the Pure Land. This book is especially for your loved ones. At the very first beginning of the book, it talks about who the spiritual passport belongs to, and you entrust 2 family members or friends. They're the responsible ones to make sure that you have a good transition into the Pure Land. The book gives concise instructions on how individuals can create bedside Dharma services. It encourages family members to recite the Nyempho in 3 shifts for 24 hours a day until you are reborn into the Pure Land. It specifically talks about how not to cry around the dying person or touch them, because that brings back the attachment to this life and not focusing on the Pure Land. This book can be notarized in the West, and you are responsible for keeping this on you at all times. In your briefcase at work, in your suit pocket, in your lady's handbag. But this should be kept with you everywhere because it has the individual's names who to contact in the event that you become incapacitated and you are approaching death. You can purchase this Pure Land Passport for $11 or so from purelanders.org. It will be shipped from Singapore and typically comes within a week or two. This, I must add, is not something that we here at the Nyempho Society of Jacksonville make. We don't produce this, so this doesn't come from us. This comes from a Sangha in Singapore. And when I first heard about this, I had to get a copy just to see for myself if it was in line or appropriate. I would suggest this, and indeed have suggested this to my disciples, that they all obtain a copy of this Pure Land Passport and fill it out and read it themselves and instruct family members whether they are Buddhist or not. But you should select 2 people that have your best interest at heart, whether they are Buddhist or non-Buddhist. But make sure that there are people that you trust to follow out your wishes. This has a section for where your ashes are to be kept or scattered, how you want your burial service to be conducted, but more importantly, bedside Nyempho recitation, and what we believe as Pure Land Buddhists for people that maybe respect your wishes and want to help you, but they don't understand what we as Pure Land Buddhists believe. So the Pure Land Passport, purelanders.org, you can attain and should obtain a copy of this. When you purchase it, it also comes with a beautiful vows from the Surangama Sutra of the Esoteric School. And it's a little cardlet like this. So the Pure Land Passport, I would strongly suggest all Pure Land practitioners receiving a copy of, because in this day and age, especially in the multimedia, this is indispensable. This is extremely important and is the nuts and bolts of our Pure Land faith for non-Buddhists. Change.
Master, yet another question. I understand that all we need to remove negative karma that we have brought upon ourselves is the Nyempho, Amitofo. But with that being said, if you feel you have been especially, exemplary, nasty or venomous or hateful or incurred a great amount of negative karma, what things can we do to offer even more merit to be reborn in the Pure Land?
The best merit that you can offer is any of the best merit, of course, is the Nyempho.
Yes.
The recitation of Amitofo. There are auxiliary practices that you may do, forms of repentance, and we've talked about these on the Dharma talks before, but simply prostrating yourself in front of the Buddha, not asking the Buddha's forgiveness, but recognizing in yourself, I have sinned, I have created this evil karma, and I am sorrowful for this evil karma, not because I will hurt myself, but I have created this evil karma for others. And it is in my bad behavior or my speech or thought that this person will incur suffering. So as you prostrate, simple regular prostration, but each recitation, instead of Amitofo, very fast, Amitofo, and then you form into a full prostration. Recover yourself. Amitofo. Full prostration. And so on and so on and so on. You can do 10 of these, 15 of these, 150 of these, 500 of these. Don't overdo it. Don't make yourself weak in the knees and pass out because then that That falls on, look at me, look how sorry I am, look, I'm going to hurt myself because I'm sorry. And you've done more harm than good. Simply recognize, I have created a bad error, and I wish to correct that. But I recognize that I have done this, and I am repentant, and I am sorrowful for doing this. Offer your repentance before the Buddha, which is easy. The hard part is apologize to the individual that you have harmed. They may not even realize you harmed them, and you say, the other day, I'm so sorry. I spoke out very ill of you. I said bad language to you. I was hostile. I was mean. And I ask forgiveness. I'm not going to forgive you. Amitofo. But the point is that you have recognized your bad deeds, and you have asked for forgiveness. And that's the first stage of forgiveness anyway. Because at that point, you have humbled yourself. You have prostrated yourself symbolically before that individual. Because it is extremely a humbling experience to ask for forgiveness from someone else in this world. So prostrations in repentance, offering of incense during those prostrations. And a good sign of how to do prostrations is if you light a stick of one, not three, one single stick of incense, and you bow, continue prostrations until that stick of incense has been exhausted. It may be 20, it may be 100, but that is a good measure, and then stop in the beginning until you build up stamina. If that becomes too much of a habit for you, and oh, I messed someone up, okay, let me do some prostrations, change your method of repentance. Do walking Yemfo recitation. Each time passing before the altar and doing a prostration. And then continue your walking meditation. And approach the altar and do a full prostration. And continue, and so on. In that way, we're constantly, and in your Nyempho recitations, if sitting and reciting with the Dharma fish, Amitofo, 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 becomes a habit, and you're not really in it, change it. Do prostrations, Amitofo, Amitofo. Walking or seated, silent meditation of the Nyempho. Or count the breath. How many times does it take to inhale? How many times does it take to exhale? And me, to, fo, me, to, fo. You can always change your method of recitation of the Nyempho. But as far as the repentance, prostrations, walking, seated, silent, but most important, apologize to the individual that you may have harmed. In that way, repentance is true and it's not forced. It is not something that you must do because you feel like you must do it. It is something that you must do because you have recognized in yourself that you have sinned and that you have erred, and you wish to correct that. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, Master.
Are there any other questions?
Yes, Master. I know recently with the Lunar New Year, we proceeded to feed the hungry ghost. And I believe it's during the month of August, that is the month of the hungry ghost. But in day-to-day practice within your own home, are there ways that if you feel you need to, you can help alleviate the suffering of the hungry ghost?
Absolutely. And a wonderful question, something that is hard for a lot of Westerners. And I'll keep this one very, very brief because I don't want to overwhelm some of the viewers with long-winded. We like to keep these bits short and concise because, as you know, Westerners have a hard time focusing on anything for a very long time. But a simple practice of feeding the hungry ghosts after every practice, and indeed most temples after the services will have a feeding of the hungry ghost ceremony, the full elaborate. But essentially, in a small offering cup, 3 grains of rice, a little bit of water. The cup is held with the stove mantra, or the stove mudra, I apologize. Looks like this. The cup is placed here and held with the fingers. The right hand is placed into the sword finger mudra, and as we chant simply the Nianfu, Amitofo, 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 place the sword finger to the hands with the cup. Place on the altar and bow. And then recite the rebirth mantra, which is found in most service books. Take this outside, Amitofo, and offer the water and the rice out to the earth. The hungry ghosts will be able to have their sufferings alleviated without the need for opening the throat mantra and all of these other mudras that we may do as lay priests or monks. But for a normal lay person, that is sufficient. And dedicate the merits. Of course, we always do, but dedicate merits after your service for the relief of the suffering souls in the hell realms and the hungry ghosts. And in that way, in that way, you will be able to alleviate their sufferings. Respected Dharma masters, fellow practitioners, and guests, we hope that some of these questions that were asked by our disciple Tianxian are some of the questions that you may have had. Always feel free to send us questions if you need. On Facebook, simply look up Shi Da Xin. That would be me, or on the YouTube channel. Or if you've received this DVD as a love gift from a friend, if you receive these DVDs and you have questions, please ask them. And maybe we'll do a video session on questions from you. But on behalf of the Nianfu Society of Jacksonville, Florida, on behalf of our very, very small congregation of Pure Land believers, I wish you great prosperity and happiness in your practice. And may the Buddha bless you and your family always. Amitofo.